but I did also call it free verse as well. So if you were listening, you would have known. Right, let's see who's won this week. I have a feeling it might not be the goats. I'm very sad about that. We'll get them next time. We'll get them next time. Nice. Thank you all for playing with me. I appreciate it. Okay, right. On to what we are doing this week. We looked last week, or started to look, at the basics of poetry. If it would load for me, there we go. This week in particular, we're going to look more in depth at form. So what actually is form in poetry? Form is the physical structure of a poem, essentially how it looks on the page, and even sounds when you read it aloud. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll look at these four things in particular. Line lengths, what they can tell us, stanza lengths, rhythms, and the rhyme scheme. And this week we're going to start with rhythm. I thought that was a nice place to start. So some poems, not all, follow quite strict rules, while others, such as the free verse ones, are a lot more flexible. And poems often enjoy playing with form, changing the structure a little bit, sometimes following rules, sometimes breaking them. And changing the form can be a really nice way for a poet to get deeper meanings across. Not in the webinar last week, didn't find it on YouTube. It should have been on YouTube. I will chase that up. Because potentially what could have happened is sometimes it doesn't load properly. I don't know why, it glitches for some reason. So I will chase that up from last week. You didn't miss much. We were literally doing the basics of poetry. So keywords, things like stanzas, what is a line, what is a rhyme scheme, what is free verse, things like that. Most of which will be recovered in later weeks, so do not worry. Are we doing the poem that I asked for? I've not prepared that specific one this week. I'm going to leave that a little bit until we kind of covered everything, and then we'll look back through it. So we looked last week at the difference between closed form, fixed form, and open form, free verse. So I briefly want to recap this. In general, closed form poems are ones that have a set rhyme scheme and a set rhythm. They follow quite strict patterns. They'll use repeating things like the rhyme, the meter, and the stanza patterns. And we often refer to that as classical or traditional poetry, things that you'll know like Shakespearean poetry, a lot of Victorian poetry is classed as closed form. Things like sonnets and haikus, and we'll cover those in more detail. The example that I gave you was Shakespeare's classic sonnet, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? This is a closed form poem because, notice here, it has a very regular rhyme scheme. Day rhymes with May, temperate rhymes with, or half rhymes with date, shines and declines, dimmed and untrimmed, fade, shade, oest, rest, sea and thee. So it has a very nice structured rhyme scheme. It also has a nice rhythm. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. The rhythm flows nice. So that would be an example of a closed form poem. Whereas free verse, also known as open form, is one that doesn't really follow those strict patterns. So a lot of our modern day poems are classed as open form because they don't like, or at least a lot of modern day poems don't like to follow traditional structures. And so they'll often just write freely as if they were writing a novel kind of thing. So things you might look for is like irregular rhymes, if they even have a rhyme. Rhythms may be unnatural, but may not even be there at all. And structure, lines and stanzas might not even be the same length consistently, but they're done for effect. And the reason is that modern day poems have this is because it's more about reflecting freedom and creativity than it is about traditional values. So for example, the one that we looked at was this one here, The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. It was a really short poem that had basically very little rhyming in it. You know what? It didn't have any rhyming at all. And it didn't even have a natural rhythm. It was this: so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater besides the white chickens. Every line emphasizes with objects, but other than that, it had no structure to it whatsoever. And that would be an example of open form. And I don't want to spend too long on this because we did look through these last week. Let me look very quickly through the chat. I want to learn how to analyze poems. Well, you're in the right place because we're going to start there today. Now, we are going to start with rhythm. I can't cover everything at once, so I'm going to break today just about rhythm. So I want to help you to understand what rhythm actually means when we refer to poems. Rhythm, in very simple terms, is the beat of a poem. When you read a poem aloud, it will have what sounds like a natural rhythm. And rhythm is created by what we call stressed and unstressed syllables. So we'll look at this in more detail in a second, but a syllable is just a sound within a word. So when you say a word, it will have a number of different syllables. And they can be either stressed or unstressed. A stressed syllable is one that's spoken quite strongly. So when you say it with power. Things like love, drum. An unstressed syllable is one that's quite soft. So it might be the, in kind of thing. And a little modern day example, I'm down with the kids. You'll all know this, TikTok trend, saying words on a beat. It's essentially like that. If this was a poem would have set beats where every single part of a word would be a beat. So how do we actually create rhythm? We do this by arranging stressed and unstressed syllables in certain patterns. And we call that pattern a meter. And we're going to look at different meters today. So all a meter is the pattern of stressed to unstressed syllables. We also convey rhythm through things like line breaks, repetitions, pauses, such as caesura, for example, especially in modern day poetry. In traditional, you don't tend to get pauses so much. We can also do it by varying emotion as well. Now, why does rhythm actually matter in poetry? Because it's like someone said, they want to learn to analyze poetry. So we need to understand why rhythm even matters in the first place. Well, a lot can be gained from understanding the rhythm of a poem. Think back to when we did phonetics a few months ago. Sounds can tell us just as much as words. If you listen closely enough to sounds, you can get just as much emotional information from it as listening to meanings of words. Rhythms give the poem its flow. It's what gives it its energy. And the rhythm itself can tell you deeper meanings as well, beyond the use of the words. So for example, if you have quite a fast rhythm, that could convey urgency or excitement, as it mirrors high energy, I guess. Whereas slow rhythms create sadness or calm. Very similar to how when you're feeling sad or calm, you feel quite mellow. Whereas a fast rhythm can signal urgency, such as when you're running and your heart is beating really fast. That would be why you would feel anxious and urgent. So, what can rhythm tell us? It isn't just sound, all right? Rhythm is meaning. We get so much from the rhythm just by hearing. Rhythm can tell us emotion and moods. You know, a strong or fast rhythm can create feelings of anxiety or urgency or excitement, which mirrors how we feel in our lives when we feel excited and anxious and urgent. Like if you were feeling quite scared, your heart would be beating, your head would be pounding, your blood would be flowing through your body. And that rhythm of the poem can directly reflect this kind of thing. Whereas a slow and gentle rhythm might be the opposite. It might be sadness and peace and reflection. Whereas an irregular rhythm, such as in free verse, might show confusion or conflict or change. You can also reveal quite a lot about characters as well through the chosen rhythm. You know, listen to the speaker's voice. If the person that's speaking is quite confident, or hesitant, or nervous, or powerful, it can tell us a lot about that person. And a steady beat might suggest control, while a shifting rhythm could show emotion breaking through. So the rhythm of the poem can reveal a lot, including things like emotion, a mood, and hidden layers of meaning. It can also tell us things about theme as well. So if you get changes in rhythm, that often reflects things like changes in tone, changes in ideas that the writer specifically wants you to think about. We've talked a lot before about writers' intentions. A writer does something for a reason. They do it on purpose. And rhythm is part of that. Rhythm is specifically chosen on purpose by the writer because it conveys different things to you. The rhythm can mirror real life actions. Now, I really wish I'd highlighted this one. You know what? I'm going to highlight this one because I think this is the most important point. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Because the rhythm can directly mirror things that are going on in life. It can mirror real life actions and experiences. And we're going to look more deeply in this in like 10-15 minutes time. Because understanding that is the more higher level skill. But once you learn to grasp it, the marks will roll in. Now, a quick pulsing rhythm in a romantic poem, for example, might mirror things like a heartbeat. When you're in love, your heart races as you look at the other person. So if you've got quite a quick rhythm in a romantic poem, the rhythm might reflect that beating heart. Equally, if you've got a steady rhythm in a war poem, that might reflect things like marching footsteps of soldiers. You know, because when soldiers march, it's quite regimented and even. And we're going to look more at that. So let me check my chat, sorry. So this is language, although it's also a bit of literature. A bit of both. Okay, so coming back to the basics then, syllables. When we speak, we break words into parts and we call these syllables. Each syllable is the beat of a word. So for example, take the word table. When you say table, you break it up into two. I've never said table. It's table. That's two syllables. Equally with chair, chair. This is one syllable. Doesn't need to be broken up. You can work out the syllables of words by just saying them out loud. If you break them up into parts, that's a syllable for each part. Table, chair. Excited, bewildered, I'm trying to think, clouds, sky, sunny. You know, you can break words into their respective parts. Now, some syllables are spoken more strongly, and we call these the stressed syllables, whereas other ones are spoken more quietly, and they are unstressed syllables. So, for example, in the word table, you normally say the ta quite strongly and the bull quite weakly. So table, table. You can kind of hear the stressed and the unstressed. Table, table. Stressed and unstressed. Things like banana. The stressed syllables in the middle. Banana, if that makes sense. So certain syllables are stressed, said quite strongly. Others are unstressed and said quite weakly. Yeah, try saying the words out loud. You'll be able to kind of hear and tell where the stressed and unstressed syllables are. Now, this is a skill that takes a little bit of mastering, but the more poetry that you read, the better you'll get at this skill. Just being able to hear where the stressed and unstressed syllables are. So, a little test then. Just in the chat very quickly, how many syllables do these words have? I know this is a revision for you, but have a go, just 1 minute. Make sure, see we're all on the same page. So, beautiful. How many are beautiful? So people saying number 1 is 3. Yeah, beautiful. 3. What about garden? A lot of people are saying 2. Yeah, garden. Celebration. A few people saying 3. Ooh, a couple getting 4. Yeah, I would go with 4. More people saying 4 than 3. Celebration. Nice. 4. Sun. 1. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. Nice. 1. Yeah, sun. That's just 1. And then summer. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Nice. Getting a lot of twos. Yeah. Beautiful garden celebration. Sun, summer. Yeah. Cool. So now we call unstressed and stressed syllables meter. So if you hear this keyword in poetry, it basically means the combination of stressed and unstressed syllables. So stressed syllables are said with more force, whereas unstressed are softer. And poets can choose, it is their intention, they purposely choose where to place the stresses in the words. And we call this meter. And you get 1 of 5 meters in poems. The one you'll be most familiar with is I am. And this is when you get an unstressed followed by a stressed syllable. So a dum pattern. For example, relax. Another word would be summer. That makes sense. So yes, unstressed followed by a stressed syllable. Trochee would be when you get the opposite, stressed followed by unstressed. So table. Spondy is where you get stressed followed by stressed. So 2 intensely spoken words. Heartbreak. A sort of like dum pattern. Anapaste is where you get unstressed, unstressed, and then stressed. So you might get 3 syllables. Dum. So like in the dark. In the light. I can't think of another one off the top of my head. And then dactyl is when you get stressed, unstressed, unstressed. So the dum, da. Beautiful. And we'll have a go at spotting these. But I'll give you an example first. So poets often arrange their words purposefully in a way that conveys a certain meter. So for example, this is Lord Byron's, an extract from Lord Byron's poem, where he uses an anapastic rhythm, the da-da-dum. So 2 unstressed followed by 1 stressed syllable. And he does this for a reason, and it's to mimic the sound of galloping horses. So if you read it through, I'm going to really struggle with these words, by the way. The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold. You can kind of hear it come through in a way. The bum, 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 bum. Any of you that are doing music, this is like our 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's very similar to music. And the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea, when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. You can kind of hear it. It's the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that is supposed to symbolically represent the sound of galloping horses. The bold stresses create a driving rhythm matching the energy of the approaching army on the galloping horses. So it's a good, I guess it's a good example of a classical closed form poem by Lord Byron. And you get this a lot. We're going to look at this towards the end of being able to begin to understand the writer's intentions and why they might choose certain rhythms. But first, just so we'll kind of get the practice in, I want to give you a little test. So thinking about the different meters you might get, I am, spondy, trochee, and dactyl. Let's work our way through these. Which kind of meter is this? By the shores of Gitchgumee, by the shining Big Sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. If you say that out loud, does anyone know what that might be? By the shores of Glitchigumee, by the shining Big Sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. That helps. I'm going to sound very silly today. Nelly is saying trochee. Does anyone agree? Anyone disagree? We've all gone quiet when we've got into the meters. It is new. It is new. I grant it to you. It's a hard skill to grasp. A couple of people saying trochee. Yeah, I think it's trochee. You've got stressed, unstressed by the shores of Glitchigone. Okay, what about William Shakespeare's Sonnet 18? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease have all too short a date. Someone saying spondy. Anyone agree, disagree? Anyone? It's fine. This is a difficult skill. Ooh, a few people going spondy. Ahmed going dactyl. Dactyl, dactyl. Let's see. I'll read it out loud, see if it changes your minds. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaves have all too short a date. Did that change anybody's mind? No, we're getting down to the spondy. It's actually an I am. You get the unstressed followed by stress. So shall I compare thee to a summer's day? It's a difficult thing to spot. It's a difficult skill. To an athlete dying young by a houseman, a smart lad to slip betimes away from fields where glory does not stay. And early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. Anyone have any idea for that one? Trochee, one said. Dactyl. No clue. It's a difficult skill. It's a difficult skill. Understandable. I give you this one. It's spondy, and I'll tell you why. It's stressed to the stress. Smart lad to slip betimes away from fields where glory does not stay. And early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. Every word there is kind of said with oomph when you read it out loud. There's not really many words in there that you would say softly. So therefore, our last one must be dactyl, and it is because there is a stressed, unstressed, stressed. So half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death. Road the 600. It's a difficult skill. We'll get it. The more you practice, the more you get it. It's a good skill to have at GCSE. Okay, slightly adding on to this then. We'll take our meters, our sounds, and I want to add an extra layer called metrical feet. A meter of a poem is the rhythmic pattern. It's our iambs, our trochee, our spondy, our lepes, and dactyl. But when we arrange them in a certain pattern, you get what is called metrical feet. So one metrical foot is the rhythmic pattern of one stressed syllable and one or two unstressed. So the way that we would work them out, or rather, I'll tell you them first. If we were to count metrical feet, we give them certain names. So for example, you might be familiar with iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter would be a poem that has an unstressed and stressed syllable 5 times in a line. If you have like iambic dimeter, that would have unstressed, stressed 2 times in a line. Trimeter is when you have 3 times in a line, tetrameter 4 times in a line, hexameter 6 times in a line. So feet just refers to how many times a stressed and unstressed syllable reoccur in a pattern. I'll give you an example to show you what I mean. I'll come back to this. Iambic pentameter, for example, is one of the most common meters in English poetry. Pretty much all of Shakespeare's sonnets are iambic pentameter, and a lot of his plays are as well. And iambic pentameter has 10 syllables per line. So if you were to count them out in a line, there would be 10. He tends to use an iambic meter. So that's when we have the unstressed followed by the stressed. And if you counted how many times he did unstressed and stressed, you'd get 5 times, which equals the 10 syllables of line, per line rather. Because if you've got one unstressed, one stressed, times that by 5, 2 times 5 is 10. And pent just means 5. So think about maths, and you get a pentagon. It's a shape with 5 sides. So a pentameter is a line with 5 ions. So you're unstressed followed by stressed 5 times. So for example, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum. 5 times iambic pentameter. So for example, in Shakespeare's sonnet 104, sorry, to me, fair friend, you never can be old. To me, fair friend, you never can be old. So you get unstressed followed by stressed 5 times. That gives iambic pentameter. Each pair of symbols forms 1 iamb. So that's an unstressed and stressed, giving the line 5 beats. Therefore, iambic pentameter, because pent means 5. We'll do another example because I get that's quite confusing. We'll come back to that. I'll give you one more example first. A trochaic tetrameter. We said a trochee was stressed and unstressed, just the opposite of an ion. Tetrameter means 4 times, not 3, 4 times. So trochaic tetrameter would be da, dum, da, 4 times in a line. And it reverses the normal speech rhythm, but I will come back to that. So let's focus a little bit on iambic pentameter for a second. We tend to use it in poems because it mimics natural speech. So when we speak normally, you'll kind of notice people naturally put emphasis on certain sounds. So even as I'm speaking now, you can kind of hear my voice do a little bit of this unintentionally. But that is kind of how we speak in normal life. And iambic pentameter, it just reflects that. It often creates normal conversation or thoughts and expresses quite deep emotion within writing. We tend to find it in poems to do with like love and relationships. So a lot of Shakespeare's poems are love poems. And the reason is because the natural rhythm just mimics a heartbeat. So they're da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum. Very similar to how your heart goes, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. So we tend to find it in love poems because it mimics heartbeat sounds, which reflects, therefore, deep emotional intimacy. You also might get it in poems about time as well, about mortality and death, purely because it symbolizes like the passing of time, almost like the ticking of a clock. So like the clock goes tick, 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 tick. Iambic pentameter has that rhythm as well. You'll find it in Power and Conflict, and also nature as well. Kind of places you'll find iambic pentameter. It is the most common type of rhythm that you will find. Compare it to something like trochaic tetrameter, which is where you have the da, dum, da 4 times, but often used because it reverses normal speech rhythms. So Shakespeare might use this when he's talking about like mystical supernatural characters. So for example, the witches. Think about double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn, cauldron bubble. That's the dum da, dum da, dum da. So double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn, and cauldron bubble. So you find it kind of reverses normal speaking patterns. So we tend to use it for like supernatural characters. Things like fairies, witches, otherworldly beings. Compare that to iambic pentameter, which is normal speech. Yeah, conveys meaning. Right, sorry, I've been ignoring the chat. Cool, nothing been said. So, we'll try this. We'll try this activity. It's fine if you don't get it at first. I will leave the slides on our English place for you to go look back on. It is a difficult skill, so let's keep trying. What is the meter here? I've left, think about firstly what kind of rhythm it is, then add the metric foot to get our total meter. So, William Wordsworth composed upon a Westminster bridge. Earth has Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull could he be of soul who could pass by. A sight so touching in its majesty, the city now doth like a garment wear. Let's firstly think, is it stressed, unstressed? Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by. A sight so touching in its majesty, the city now doth like a garment wear. What kind of rhythm is this? Anyone have any ideas? Don't know if this is going to go particularly well. Maybe I went ahead of my time on this one. You're all gone quiet. It's fine if you're wrong. Have a go. That's what we're here for. It's a difficult skill. This is why people don't like poetry. Oh, a couple people getting the right answer. A couple people. We've got a few different opinions on this. Now, Nelly has the right answer. It is our I am. And the reason is it's unstressed and stressed. Earth has not anything to show more there. It's unstressed followed by stressed. How many times is that pattern repeated? Should give you your meter over here. So Earth has not anything to show more fair. 5 times that 2 syllables have been repeated, which gives us iambic pentameter. Now, let's try another. We'll get this. Henry Wordsworth, the song of Hiawatha. So it goes like this. By the shores of Glitchigumi, by the shining big sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon Nokomis. Anyone know what this is? Maybe I went too hard on this one. Sorry, guys. Have any ideas? Nice. Someone's got it right. Nelly on the ball for this one. She's got it. She's got it. Got it down. It is trochee. There is stressed followed by unstressed. Nice. Ahmed's got it. Absolutely right. For trochee. Slightly wrong with the repetition. So let's count it. By the shores of Glitchigumi. That's 4. Repeated 4 times in it. So if it's 4, it must be trochaic tetraparameter for 4 repetitions. Okay, we're starting to get this a little bit. People getting these right. The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. All in the valley of death rode the 600. Any ideas what this is? I'll give you a second to think about this one. Have a go. Come on. That's why we're here. Spondy and a paste. Come on, I'm counting on Nelly for this one. She's got it. She's got us in the bag. She's got us covered. Okay, Anapace diameter. Oh, Ahmed is very close. He's got the diameter right. Not quite anapaced, though. Very close. He's noticed that there are 3 syllables in a pattern here. Nearly on the... Ooh, almost on the ball this time. Almost. Yes, it is dactyl diameter. There is 3 syllables. Stressed, unstressed, unstressed. Half a league, half a league. The emphasis on the half. Half a league onward. All in the valley of death. Rode the 600. It's diameter because that 3 repeats 2 times per line. Right, final one. And then I promise that I'll leave that. The Destruction then by Lord Byron. Anyone know what this is? Does anyone know? I might speed this one on a little bit so we've got time to think about one of our questions at the end. This one is going to be anapaced, but does anyone know how many times it gets repeated in a line? Nelly was on the ball anyway. Got it, she's got it, she's got it down. Someone said pentameter. It's not pentameter, but it is anapaced. There's 3 syllables per unit. So the Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold. 4 times it repeats, so therefore it must be 4 times it repeats, therefore it must be anapastic tetrameter. Lovely. Okay, we'll go to the last one. Now, I do very, very quickly want to talk to you about common meter. You will see this quite often. It is one of our most common forms of meter. Last week, I showed you this poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson, a very famous poem. Now, sometimes poems might change the rhythm per each line. So, for example, on this one, you've got 8 syllables followed by 6 syllables, 8, 6, 8, 6, 8, 6, all the way down. So each line doesn't have the same number of syllables, it changes. And that's on purpose. So it might vary between iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. And that's quite a common rhythm to find in poems. So one line will be iambic tetrameter, where it's like unstressed, stressed 4 times. And then the next line might be iambic trimeter, where it's unstressed, stressed 3 times. And we often use this in ballads. We will come back to common meter when we think about ballads specifically. And the reason people do this is because it makes it memorable. It kind of makes it sound nicer. It's purely the reason, but you'll find it quite often used. So meter is the rhythm. Meter is how many stressed and unstressed syllables there are in a line. So for example, here, because I could not stop for death, there is unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. 4 times. The next line, he kindly stopped for me. That's unstressed, stressed 3 times, so it gives us a total of 6. The cat reach held, but just ourselves. 8 syllables. That's all we're doing. Is meter is just the number of stressed and unstressed syllables there are per line. And that's common meter. Now, we've looked in the past at the effect on the reader, but I wanted to remind you of it. We looked before at this acronym of faults. Ignore my choice of image. For all you geography people out there, you'll know what a fault is. But remember back to when we looked at the effect on the reader, we used the acronym FAULTS. So feel, ask, understand, link, think, sympathize. And we looked at that in terms of normal literature writing. But it applies the same for when you're analysing poetry. You should always be considering what are the intentions of the writer, and you should always be considering how does that affect the reader, the person who's reading it. Yeah, I want to get to the questions. I will get to the questions. I will post these slides on our normal place for you to look at in your own time. But I wanted to do at least one of these questions just to see where we are. Yes, we still finish at past. I wanted to have a go at least one of these. So, how has rhythm here been used to show love? Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Browning. I want you to consider what kind of rhythm has been used and how does it show love? Does it mimic or reflect anything literal or figurative about love? How does the reader feel? So all we're doing is what we've just done. Pick out what the rhythm is, the meter. Except this higher skill is thinking about, do these sounds reflect anything to do with the theme of the poem, which is love? So I love thee to the depth and breadth of height. My soul can reach when feeling out of sight. The ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of each day's. Most quiet need by sun and candle light. So we've got the da-dum, 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 da-dum. 5 times. So what kind of rhythm is that? I should have left on a little table, my bad. In poetry, often we read, when we speak in normal language even, we speak like that. You just don't really notice it. When we say syllables out loud, you kind of gauge which ones are stressed, said more harshly, and which ones are unstressed, said quite softly. That's why I'm talking like that. Because in poetry, some words are stressed, they're said quite harshly, other words are unstressed, they're said quite softly. So in this case, I love the depth and breadth and height. My soul can reach when feeling out of sight. All I'm doing is stressing the syllables so you can hear them. Someone said it makes the reader feel calm and relaxed by using calming words. Yes, ignore the words for now. They got purely rhythm. We may have to come back to this next week. I didn't anticipate us going over so much. Have a go though. We'll just do this one. We'll just do this one. I'll show you an example answer. The rhythm that's been used is iambic pentameter. The reason is because iambs are unstressed and stressed. Pentameter just means 5 times. So this sonnet has used unstressed followed by stressed syllables 5 times. I love the depth and breadth of height. 5 times. There's 2 lots of syllables. My soul can reach when feeling out of sight. 5 times again. Iambic pentameter. Da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum. Now this is quite a regular rhythm, and the reason they've chosen this for this specific poem is because it reflects the natural beat of the heart. The heart goes da dum, da dum, da dum. If you put your hand on your chest and you feel your heartbeat, you feel it. It goes da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum. And often when we write love poems, using iambic pentameter reflects that beating heart. So every syllable of the word is like a heartbeat. The reason we do this is because we associate the heart with love and intimacy. So using that kind of rhythm reflects that amount of love. So this regular heartbeat-like rhythm reflects the constancy and depth of the speaker's love, suggesting it is measured, enduring, and reliable rather than fleeting. The rhythm mirrors the figurative heartbeat of love, giving it a sense of life. And someone said, yes, calm, it's reassuring, it's intimate. You're absolutely right when you said that. Allowing them to experience the speaker's devotion as sincere, enduring, and personally profound. So it mirrors the heart. We'll do one more. I'll give you one more example, and then I'll let you go. Where do I post the slides? Mr. Siddiqui should have sent your parents a link to where they are. If not, I would email him for that. But they are updated. I need to do it for last week. I didn't do it last week, but I will do them for this week and last week. Last one. Let's have a go at this. How has rhythm been used to show mourning? This poem is about burying a fallen soldier. So having that in mind is a poem about mourning and grieving the loss of somebody. So how has specifically rhythm conveyed that feeling of mourning? Now I've given you 8 syllables, 6 syllables, 8 and 6. They throw in drum mahoj to rest, unconfined just as found. His grave upon the koji rest. Breaks not the veld around. So what rhythm has been used? We know it's 2 syllables, and we know how many times. And I told you this was a really common type of rhythm, and we call it common meter. We never got access to the slides, they're not on the website. Oh, you should do. I will chase Mr. Siddiqui up about that because he should be doing it every week. And I will chase him about it. English slides. I'll write myself a little note. I will chase him about it. Okay, so I said dimeter, there's more than 2 repetitions in here. There's 4 and 3, so we call it common meter, the one that I just told you about. Where you get the alternating iambic tetrameter and trimeter. Now, the reason this is done is because it's supposed to convey something about the situation. So that steady rhythm mimics the sound of the drums being played. Often, what you'll find, or historically what happened, is when a soldier used to get buried from war, they would play drums at the funeral. And this poem is supposed to mimic that sound of the drums. So the dum, da dum, da dum. It's supposed to be quite steady, almost kind of conveying quite a mournful, reflective, sad tone to the poem, which you should feel because it is a poem about burying a dead soldier. Um, yeah, so you should get a feeling of sadness and quiet reflection. Right, I will leave it there. Nothing is as hard as rhythm. I've started purposefully with the hardest thing to grasp, especially when you're new to poetry. But the more that you practice, and I have left multiple examples on these slides that I want you to go look at in the next week and just have a go, have a practice at being able to pick out what the meter and the rhythm is. Um, I've also given you a step-by-step guide on how to work that out and also how to work out the effect of rhythm. So go have a look at that. You'll find 2 more example questions here for you to have a go at, as well as a step-by-step guide of how to work out the meaning of rhythm. But I will begin next week's session by having a go at those with you. Okay. Right, you are welcome to stay for Key Stage 4, but that is Key Stage 3 done. Have a nice week, guys. I know that was a difficult thing. Trust me, rhythm is the hardest thing. Once we get past that, we'll be sailing through. But well done for having a go. I really appreciate it. It's a difficult skill. Right. So, right, whilst we get people coming in for Key Stage 4 GCSE, here's a little starter. No Kahoot today because we've got a fair bit to do. But here, have a go at this revision AO1 starter. Remember, back to AO1 work is picking up quotes. So it doesn't need to be anything long, just looking for quotes. And put those answers in the chat. Let's see what we get. Just whilst we wait for the next minute or 2 for people to enter, because we always get latecomers. Right, let's have a look. Sorry, I have actually neglected the chat, haven't I? What's a bit, but we doing on Sunday for I don't know. I don't teach Sundays, and I don't get access to all of the next week stuff. This week is chemistry, so I think it's your Sunday. You're like the start of the week technically. So I don't know. Okay, right. I give you 30 more seconds whilst I go top up my drink, but have a go at this AO1 starter. It's always good revision. What we said, do you remember back? We looked at AO1 not that long ago. It's 10% of your exam. So if you can master this 10%, then you're 10% on the way to a great grade. All we're needing is quotes. Nothing more complex. Just picking out quotes. Putting your answers in the chat. Right, so let's see what you have come up with. Okay, in an exam, you would only get a few minutes for this, and you've already had 4 or 3. So let's go through this, because this is not what we're doing today. It's just a starter. So Zara says, for number 1, in less than a minute, he was on his bike. Yes, exactly that. Okay, anything else? That is a good option for that. Pulled it over his pajamas, less than a minute he was on his bike. Yeah, things like he seized his dressing gown, pulled over his pajamas, grabbed his waistcoat. In less than a minute he was on his bike. Nice. What about for number 2? Identify one phrase which shows it is winter. Frozen puddles along the edge of the road. Correct. Iron hard with frost. Correct. I think they might be the only 2. Yes, I think they are. Right, so number 3. Explain how we can tell that as he rides his bike, Jericho is excited. Absurdly euphoric is a great quote for this. Yes, he was absurdly euphoric, laughing like a madman. Absolutely right. Nice. Good. Smashing AO1. Let me just check everyone else is okay. Yes, we answer here. In the text, it says that Jericho laughed like a madman. He felt absurdly euphoric. Nice. Drumskin? Where are we seeing Drumskin? Okay. The ice crystals rupturing under his tires like drumskins. The drumskins itself doesn't necessarily convey the idea of winter or excitement, but the ice crusts definitely do. Okay. Right, that's not what we're doing today, though. We're going to carry on from last week. Somebody asked me, can we go through an example text? Yes, we can. That's what we're going to do. Now, over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to break this up. We've mentioned a lot over the last 2 weeks about extract questions and whole text questions. So I briefly just wanted to remind you the difference per different exam boards, because I know you all do different exam boards. The only exam board that looks at structure by itself is AQA. Every other exam board will never ask you about structure by itself. Most of them will be in combination. So Educas, Edexcel, OCR will all ask extract questions with language combined. So they don't ask for just structure, but we are going to practice just structure today, just for the sake of prep. And then the same for the whole text. Educas, Edexcel, and OCR all have a whole text question with language and structure combined, but only AQA is structure only. And only AQA and Educas are language only. So yeah, if you're Edexcel and OCR, I mean, I don't know. It depends what you are good at, what you prefer. I personally don't love the AQA have a structure only question. I think it's the hardest one. So I think if you're with OCR and Edexcel, I think it's easier, personally. There you go. So we're going to focus on the extract question today, and then next week we'll look at the whole text. Now, I wanted to briefly remind you of the techniques and the terminology that's most related to the extract. So I'd kind of take everything we've done on who, what, why, where, when over the past week or so and leave that behind for now. We'll pick that back up next week when we do whole text. So we're looking at things like this: pacing, listing, repetition, anaphora, the different sentence types: minor, simple, complex, interrogative, declarative, exclamative, fragmentation, stream of consciousness, and changes in focus are the ones that I want you to think about today. And it might be worth taking a picture of these so you have them on reference as we go through the text today. So I'll give you 30 seconds, take a picture just so you have remind yourself as sort of reference when we're going through the text. Whilst I quickly look at the chat. I think everything's been answered. Nice. Okay. So briefly then, you'll all have heard me talk about Peter paragraphs. When you write answers in English language, I would encourage you strongly to use this format. I just personally think it makes writing answers easier. So starting with your points, what is the writer trying to tell you? Finding evidence to support that. And when I say evidence, I mean direct quotes from the text. Terminology. So in this case, that's our structural devices, all the things here. These are all terminology marks. If you mention any of these, nice. Explaining. Why has the writer chosen that technique? Why have they chosen to do that? And how does that affect the reader? Thinking back to our FALTS acronym, does it make you feel a certain way? Does it make you ask a question? Does it make you understand anything? Link to themes? Think about anything specific? Or sympathize with the characters? So, again, I don't have my phone, so I can take a pic, which I do. I would take note of some of them, if I were you, just for practice, so that you have them on reference when we're looking through the text. I mean, I'm going to do a lot of the heavy lifting today, but I am going to try and get you thinking about some techniques. Also, I've given you some examples of some possible sentence starters. For example, the writer or the narrator uses refers to employs. The writer/narrator builds or creates or develops. Maybe it could be develops an ominous atmosphere, a claustrophobic atmosphere, a sense of foreboding, a sense of excitement. The writer/narrator creates a mood, atmosphere, sense, or feeling of. The use of the simile, metaphor, personification, whatever device. The pace/the rhythm of the text. Just some ideas of sentence starters. Now, I'm not going to get you to write anything today, but they're for you later, in case you want. And then, yeah, I also wanted to remind you of this acronym here, because when it comes to writing paragraphs, you should always be considering how it affects the reader. And I would do that by using one of the words here. So does it make you feel a certain way? Does the text make you want to ask a certain question? Does it help you to understand something better? Does it help you to think a certain way? Does it help you to sympathize with a character? I would always, just for ease, try and use one of those words when thinking about the effect on the reader, because it will make it easier for you to explain. Is link and reader the same thing? Yes, but I personally prefer reader because I think it makes it clearer what you're supposed to do. Link is, I don't know, there's a slight difference. Reader is the effect on the reader, these things. Link is like linking back to the question. So using the wording of the question just so that the marker knows that you are choosing relevant points that are related back specifically to the question, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to start with Edexcel, and we'll do OCR later. In Edexcel, this kind of question is paper 1, question 3. And you'll get something that looks like this. You'll get given a short extract, and you'll be asked, how does the writer use language and structure to show X, Y, Z? And I've highlighted the key terms here, and I would advise you to do the same in this exam scenario. The first thing that I would do, if I were you, is highlight what the question is asking you, which in this specific case is Hester's love for Rosamond. That's the theme or the topic of the question. So everything you should write should be answering this question directly. Everything you write should be about Hester's love for Rosamond, or whatever yours is in the exam. Don't stray away from it, because then you're going to lose marks. You only get marks for talking about these or things relating to that specific thing. Now, we are only going to talk about structure today, but in the real exam, we talk about the language as well. So, some advice there, things that I would do. Firstly, reread the extract. I'd read it once in full, and then I'd read it in part, broken down. Every time you write a paragraph, I would try and write at least 3 structural devices, because you want to be ticking off terminology marks, showing the examiner, that you know key terminology and you can use it accurately. I would also analyze the effect on the reader. Don't be scared to over-explain yourself, because it's clear. You know, you're not going to get marked down for over explaining. It's always better just to be really clear how the writing has affected you as a reader. Don't be afraid to really just like spell it out for the person who's marking it. Talk about a range of devices. So talking about 3+ per paragraph. And I said 3+, I would go for 3 per paragraph. I've done that twice for some reason. And then use a wide range of well-chosen evidence. So when you pick quotes out, make sure that they are relevant and then also direct. So you've directly chosen the correct wording. Now, for this kind of question, it's 6 marks, and that's about 10 minutes for people doing Edexcel. So you shouldn't be spending any more than 10 minutes on this. We're going to do language techniques in a couple of weeks, so we'll come back to language. These are just structural devices. So this is the mark scheme for that question. And I've only highlighted level 3 because that's where I want you guys to be, or hopefully you can get there. So level 3, if you want to get that higher marking band for this question, what it wants you to do is analyze language and structure. Analysis isn't just saying the writer has chosen, I don't know, a slow pace because blah, 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 blah. They want analysis. Why? Why has the writer specifically chosen to use that terminology? Why? They want writer's intentions. They want detailed explanation. They also want for you to talk about the effects of the reader. When I say these things to you, I'm not just telling you for giggles. I'm telling you because that's what the mark scheme says. It wants you to mention the effect on the reader for that higher band. And it also wants you to use key vocabulary, such as language and structural devices. So again, I'm not just telling you this for no reason. Everything that we've done over the past couple of weeks is for a reason. I'm giving you the terminology for you to consider. I'm helping you think about the effect of the readers. Now, it also says that your references or your quotes should be discriminating and clarifies the points being made. In other words, are they relevant and are they accurate? And in terms of quotes, you should be using about 3 per paragraph, P to paragraph. And same with language and structural devices. You should be using about 3 per paragraph. And you only need 2 detailed P to paragraphs. So that means 6 devices and 6 quotes would get you into this band here, if that makes sense. Okay, so an example to show you what I mean. I didn't write this. I got this from a model answer website. I personally don't love this answer, but it gives you a good idea of what I mean. So I won't read the extract. I'll just read you the answer, and I'll read what the comments were for that answer. And I've highlighted in green the terminology that they've used and the quotes that they've used. Even before I read it, they've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quotes. That's a lot. I don't think you need to use that many per P to paragraph, personally. When I mark these, I do not expect 7 quotes. Nor do I expect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 devices. 3 would suffice for that higher band. Trust me, I've seen model answers of this. But anyway, the focus shifts again in the second paragraph to the large bundle, which is added to the main man's burden, given that it is described as somewhat too heavy for his strength. The sense of sluggishness and exhaustion is then broken by a little moaning cry, and the writer contrasts the vastness of both the landscape and the man's journey with the small child. Repetition of little, along with the use of detailed adjectives, small scared face, bright brown eyes, little speckled dimpled fists, shifts the narrative perspective from the man to the child and the wild environment to the precise contents of the bundle. The simple exclamatory sentence, "You hurt me," conveys the youth and naivety of the child, which seems out of place in such an inhospitable landscape. I'll leave it there. It's not really about what's been written here. I just purely wanted to include this to show you the skills, the amount of quotes that you should be using, the amount of terminology that you should be using. Now, the reason this got a high mark, it is only 1 out of 2 P to paragraphs, but the reason it got a high mark, the examiner said, it covers analysis of both language and structure. It demonstrates perceptive understanding of the different ways the writer's choices could be interpreted. Now, note here they've said perceptive understanding. What they mean by that is a deeper level. Have you not just said what's literally happening, but what's happening on a figurative, deeper level? It includes an excellent range of quotes from the extract for all the points made. So again, supports my point, you need lots of quotes. The explanation of each point is clear. The response uses accurate subject terminology, where relevant and appropriate, and it does not rely on feature spotting, which is when a candidate just points out the techniques the writer has used without exploring why they've used them. Now, I wanted to focus on this last bit a little bit, because the amount of times I get an answer to mark, and students do this a lot, and I blame schools for this. They do something called feature spotting, and that's when I think people think they're going to get marks just for naming terminology. You don't. You get marks for naming terminology and providing an explanation. You can't just write a Peter paragraph without the E, Peter. You need Peter, you need the E, you need the explanation. If you don't provide the explanation, you're not going to get the marks for the correct terminology, unfortunately. So you have to do one and the other. You can't do one without the other. And we call that feature spotting. It happens a lot. So you won't get marks without doing the explanation. You have to do the explanation to get the marks. Okay, now this is the one that we're going to work together through together today. So I hope you've got your techniques ready. Now, the question is, in the extract, how does the writer use language and structure to show Hester's love for Rosamond? So everything we say, every point that you make, should be in answer directly to this question. Everything you write should be about Hester's love. If you are anything else, it's not relevant. It has to be about Hester's love specifically. So let's work through this bit by bit. He told me he had been up to the fells to gather in his sheep before the deep cold of night came on, and that under the holly trees, black marks on the hillside, where no other bush was for miles around, he had found my little lamb, my little lady, my lamb, my queen, my darling, sniffing the cold in the terrible sleep, which is frost begotten. Now, before I go through this, does anyone notice any structural devices in here? Firstly, I've highlighted the entire paragraph. Why do you think I've done that? Something structurally interesting has been done here. Does anyone know? Give you a second to think about it. Oh, we're quiet today. I'll give another 20 seconds. If no one says anything, I will tell you. Okay, so I've highlighted this for a reason. The reason being, this entire paragraph is all one sentence. There's no full stop in here other than at the end, right? Structurally, that's quite an interesting choice to make. Yeah, it's all one long, complex sentence. Now, I said this. The whole first paragraph is one long, complex sentence, where notice the focus shifts between clauses. We start by focusing on the fells to gather the sheep, then, comma, second clause, we focus on the deep cold of night. Then, third clause, after this comma, the focus is on the holly trees. The fourth focus, the black marks on the hillside where no other bush was for miles around. Then, the fifth focus, lady, lamb, queen, darling, we've got so many focus shifts there. Stiff and cold and the terrible sleep, which is frost begotten. We've got a massive number of focus shifts within that sentence alone. Now, the reason the writer has done this is to focus on setting. Each clause gets progressively more isolated. The fells, the deep cold of night, and the holly trees, which are the only bushes for miles around. So with every clause, you get further and further into a sense of isolation. Now, in terms of the effect on the reader, why has the writer done this? Well, for me personally, it makes me feel quite empathetic. Because they find Rosamond, the girl, in the bush. And so as a reader, you're feeling quite sorry for the girl because she's isolated. And the reason we feel that is because of the focus shifts, the increasing isolation. The build between clauses is emphasized, creating therefore quite a slow pace. And we said in the past that we use slow pacing to build suspense, making the reader feel quite unnerved. Every time we build isolation, the reader is feeling more and more unsettled, thinking about that isolation. Therefore, we are forced to reflect on each setting and consider the consequences of such isolation, is what I would say. What does frost begotten mean? Basically means like frost obviously is ice or whatever. Begotten means like gone, like forgotten. So it's covered in ice, basically. Like it's so cold that it's beginning to frost over. Okay, next, or rather, before I tell you, they notice something here. My little lady, dash, my lamb, dash, my queen, dash, my darling, dash, stiff and cold. Does anyone remember what that technique is? The structural device. I don't want to do this all myself today. Does anyone remember? Lovely, it's fragmentation. We've got some fragmentation there. We've also got, notice here, what kind of narration is this? We talked about narration not last week, but the week before. We've got my little lady, my lamb, my queen, my darling. What kind of narration is this? Is it first or third person? Hassan says first person. It is absolutely first person. We've got a first person protagonist stream of consciousness. Remember back to last week or the week before, we talked about streams of consciousness. That is where the narrator basically just spiels off what they're thinking to you, the reader. And that's basically what's happening here. What they are thinking, they are saying. And it's in first person. So structurally, this allows the reader to experience the immediate emotions of the narrator. The sentence meanders. We said it changes focus and adds in these brackets here, these parentheses, which reflects Hester's thought process as it naturally flows. This whole thing is just her thoughts, one after the other, right? And the use of that bracketing is like her changing thoughts. Now, imagine if your child was lost, how you would feel. You'd feel very similar to Hester here. Your thoughts would be racing. You'd be constantly changing your thoughts as you kind of like try to locate your daughter. So this kind of like bracketing interrupts the narrative flow in a way in which the mind might notice small, vivid details whilst thinking intensely. So the whole point of using a stream of consciousness is to reflect the thoughts of the narrator. And the first person narration means that we feel as a reader the same as the narrator does. She is feeling quite worried and anxious. We are feeling quite worried and anxious. Now, what is the point of all this if we need our P from our Peter paragraph? By structuring the paragraph as a continuous flow of thought, it shows that how overwhelming love can be. Now, remember back, we need to write by Hester's love. Well, what does it actually show us? It shows us how overwhelming love is. Hester's love is all-consuming, it's personal, it's immersive. She loves her child greatly, and we know that because of her stream of consciousness. Okay. First person, nice. We're getting that right in the chat. Lovely. Okay, someone also mentioned the fragmentation. You'd be absolutely right that it is here. We've got a fragmented list. My little lady, my lamb, my queen, my darling. We've got a fragmented list. Now, why have we got a fragmented list? It makes her love feel, if we're thinking about Hester's love, spontaneous and heartfelt. Again, emphasizing this idea that her love is almost overwhelming, all-consuming. It shows Hester's intense, layered affection for Rosamund, where the dashes here break the flow of our sentence, creating those small emotional pauses that mimic the way that Hester's thoughts and feelings leap from one thing to the next. Structurally, this mirrors her stream of consciousness, emphasizing the immediacy and depth of her love, where each title places focus on how much Rosamond means to her. Notice we've got the lady, the lamb, the queen, and the darling. If we were to mention language, we could bring in symbolism here. But I won't for now because I don't want to stray out of our symbolism. Yeah, we're not stray out of our structure. Now, we've also got, notice here, I think somebody said anaphora. I think somebody said before. Who was it? Because you were absolutely right. Anonymous in attendee. We've got anaphora. We've got the repeated anaphoric use of the personal pronouns. Now, why do you think we've got repeated personal pronouns of my? What does it show us about Hester's love? Anyone have any ideas? It's fine if not. Very dear to him, absolutely. When we use personal pronouns, they can be quite possessive in the way that they sound. Like my is possessive, isn't it? These are possessive anaphoric personal pronouns, therefore telling us that she has quite a possessive love towards her child. It's protective, it's intimate. Each of the my's emphasizes personal connection and ownership, making the affection feel quite deeply intimate and tender. Heightens how close their relationship really was. Yes, it's exactly that. By repeating this anaphoric use of possession, it's showing how protective and deep and close their relationship is. Brilliant. Nice. So, just an example so that you have a high-level grade 9 answer. I've gone away and I've written an example paragraph. This is the kind of thing you'd be looking for that sort of grade 9 answer for this. So all I've done is I've made a paragraph about everything I've just said. So the writer begins the extract by introducing a first-person protagonist stream of consciousness. Already off the bat, I'm ticking off my terminology correctly. Big marks. To convey Hester's profound, deep, protective love and anxious care for Rosamond. So my point here is that Rosamond's love is deep, protective, and anxious. Hester opens the narrative with a single paragraph of only one complex sentence in which she recounts, "He told me he had been up to the falls to gather in his sheep," which begins with an external action but quickly shifts focus between clauses to the cold of night, the lonesome holly trees, which were the only bushes for miles around. So notice here I've been a bit cheeky and I've taken what is really one quote and split it into 3 smaller quotes, because that's how you get the marks, by using more quotes. So if you're ever unsure, split things up into smaller quotes. Now, this shift of focus emphasizes the isolated nature of the setting to reflect Hester's growing worry and panic for the lost Rosamond, demonstrating the overwhelming nature of her love and her deep protective instincts. That is enough explanation to get you a decent amount of marks. Furthermore, this is supported by the fragmented listing upon finding Rosamond, in which Hester calls her "my little lady, my lamb, my queen, my darling," as the tone switches to relief, which shows the all-consuming intensity of Hester's love as the breaks in pace mimic her chaotic and racing thoughts, showing her sheer relief and joy for locating Rosamond. Thus, the complex narrative structure of the opening paragraph creates an overwhelming, almost disorientating feeling for the reader as we share the grand intensity of the unstable emotion Hester feels, causing us to feel deeply empathetic and tense when she couldn't find Rosamond, but then relieved when she does. This shows that her love is deeply intimate. Okay, so that's an example of the kind of quality of answer that you would be looking for. I've highlighted in orange the point, evidence in yellow, terminology in green, explanation in blue, and then reader in purple. So I've ticked all the boxes here. Okay, let's carry on then. Let's get through this. Oh, exclamation mark. What is interesting just from this very first sentence here? Oh, exclamation mark. What have we got? What kind of sentence have we got there? Any ideas? What's our sentence type that we've got? Any ideas? Fine. If not, It is our very minor exclamatory sentence. It's just one word, exclamation mark. Now, in terms of the flow and the pacing, it interrupts the flow, quickening, therefore, the pacing. Why has the writer done this if we're thinking about an explanation? Well, it conveys a sudden emotional outpouring from Hester. The brevity and exclamation capture the raw intensity of Hester's feelings, showing her love as spontaneous and overwhelming, almost too big for words. So that's my point. Her love is raw, it's intense, it's spontaneous, it's overwhelming, it's too big for words to be contained. And it all just comes out in this minor exclamatory sentence, which emphasizes the quick pace. Next, the joy and the tears of having her in my arms once again, but I would not let him carry her, but took her, cloak and all, into my own arms, and held her near my own warm neck and heart, and felt the life stealing slowly back again into her gentle limbs. Now, notice we had a very simple minor exclamatory sentence, and that's been followed by this quite long, complex sentence. And the focus has changed. What is the focus of this sentence, would you say? It is the same as an exclamatory epithet. But what would you say is the focus of this sentence, the one highlighted in orange? Because we're going to link it back to Hester's love. Any ideas? No? Okay. Ooh, quiet today. The focus here is like body parts, the arms, the carrying, the arms again, the neck, the heart, the gentle little limbs. It's all body parts. It's physical. So the focus of the love has become something quite physical. So the complex sentence places focus on the physicality of love and body parts to show how intimate, intense, and raw it is. It stretches out the narrative, slowing time and pace to reflect Hester's careful, lingering attention. This structural elongation mirrors the protective, nurturing love, emphasizing physical closeness and the emotional act of reviving Rosamund. So it shows that Hester's love is active and tender. So the terminology here is the change in focus of the sentence types. The explanation is that by focusing on that physicality, it's enhancing the love is not just being emotional, but being physical and being all-consuming, is how I would explain this. We've also got, but she was still insensible when we reached the hall, and I had no breath for speech. We went in by the kitchen door. Now, this one I'll tell you because it's a little bit harder to spot. But notice, we've got a complex sentence here, followed by, or rather, sorry, we'll talk about this one first. A complex sentence, but she was still insensible when she reached the hall, and I had no breath for speech. Talking about her physical overwhelm, the fact that she had no breath for speech tells us how exhausted she is. And if we're linking that to love, we could talk about how her inability to speak emphasizes her emotional depth. She's so infatuated with her love for her daughter that she physically is exhausted by feelings that she feels. But however, this is contrasted quite sharply to a very short changing simple sentence which changes the focus. The focus was on her breath, then we went in by the kitchen door. Now, that contrasts quite heavily to the previous complex sentence, but it's not without reason. The reason that we begin to focus on the kitchen door is because it shows us that there is also a practical side to love. She can't physically show her love. She's out of breath. But what she can do is show her love by doing something. So she takes her inside, which mirrors the practical side of the love, where care can manifest through actions as much as it can through words. It's like the old age saying, an action speaks louder than words. And it's so true. Love can manifest through you doing something for somebody else. It doesn't just have to be through words. And that's what this quote shows us. By contrasting it to the breath, we get this focus on practicality. Did someone kidnap the kid? No one's kidnapping the kid. No, this is a mother looking after a child. Basically, the child has escaped. The mother's gone to look for her. Found her and like dying in a field. Yeah, dying in a field basically, and then looking after the child. Okay, thinking about the next bit then. Let's break it bit by bit. Bring the warming pan. What kind of sentence do we have here? Any ideas? Let's speed this along because Knight needs to take his creatine, apparently. Imperative, absolutely. We've got an imperative sentence. And the reason we would use an imperative sentence is because it's an instruction. So if we're thinking about love, why might Hester have used an imperative? Was because her attention is fixated on helping her child. It shows us how active she's being in her love, that she's trying hard to help care for her child. Like we said, an action speaks louder than words. She's trying to show her love through attention and action rather than just emotion. Don't say it in the chat where everyone can see. Expect me not to expose you. You exposed yourself. I carried my little lammy, all the sweet and playful. Sorry, I called my little lammy all the sweet and playful names I could think of, even while my eyes were blinded by my tears, and at last, oh. What have we got here? Firstly, we've got a dash, which tells us there is some sort of structural device here. What is there there? Any ideas? I'll tell you, we've got some fragmentation. We know because there's a dash. We've got clauses physically segmented from one another. Again, we've got focus. So we've got a fragmented stream of consciousness. She's telling us what's in her head. She called her my little lammy, all the sweet and playful names she could think of. Except what I want you to focus on is the difference between the clause before the dash and after the dash. Before the dash, the focus is on the playful names. After the dash, the focus is on the fact that she's crying. She's teared up by this incident. Now, despite having tears in her eyes, she's still devoted all of her time and effort and love towards her child. So I said, this shows the personal and tender nature of her love. Hester is inseparable from Rosamond, highlighting the intensity of maternal care. The fragmented clause presents a dismissive tone towards her own suffering. Like she's actually crying and she doesn't care. Her attention is solely on her child. She's almost forgotten about herself. And so if we're thinking about love, that shows her as a selfless mother, therefore showing that love is all-consuming, that it's selfless. Love is selfless. It should never be selfish. Thanks, Mike. Okay, then I put her into her warm bed, and I made up my mind to sit by my darling's bedside the livelong night. Now, I talked you through this one because we are running low on time. We've got focus shifts. Firstly, we've got focus on her protective instincts. The fact that she decided and made a conscious choice to sit by her daughter's bed while she was sleeping to make sure that she was okay. We've also got the repeated personal pronouns, the I, my. Again, showing that possession, that loyalty, that dedication to her child. Hester makes a conscious choice to selfless devotion. She literally loses sleep to make sure that her child is okay. So by choosing to stay by Rosamond's side, this shows her commitment and vigilance, showing that love persists beyond immediate relief. And again, love is a selfless thing. Now, we've almost finished. It then says, she fell asleep into a soft sleep as soon as her pretty head had touched the pillow, and I watched by her till morning light. When she awakened up bright and clear, or so I thought at first, and my dears, so I think now. Notice here, we've got some fragmentation again. We've got the dashes. Now, fragmentation normally signifies changing thoughts. normally anxiety. So the extract ends with a tone of uncertainty, where the fragmented structure reflects Heste's anxieties. The ruptured fast pace reflects her racing, tentative thoughts, showing that her emotions jump between relief, hope, and lingering worry. Structurally, this captures the fragility and intensity of her attachment, emphasizing that her love is both intimate and deeply cautious. It is a cliffhanger, as the reader does not know whether Rosamond is well or not. So yeah, we get a very intense look at love again. She's clearly very anxious and cares a lot about Rosamond, her child. She literally gives up her good night's sleep to look after her child. And she's worried about her. She hopes that she's well, but then she worries that she might not be. So that fragmented structure is like her racing mind, like full of anxieties. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made a list of points that you could make for a question like that. So firstly, Hester's love is protective, it's tender and nurturing, it's intense and emotional, overwhelming, it's personal and intimate, it's active, she's patient and vigilant, she's anxious and cautious, it's possessive and devoted, it's immediate and spontaneous, it's hopeful and reflective, and it's layered. So all of those could be possible points you could make for this kind of question. Now, we've not got that much time, so I will just, instead of going through a worked example, I will just show you some high-level examples for OCR. But if you want to, I will update these slides onto the system, and I want you to look through another worked example that I've done for OCR, so that you, do it on your own time, because I think it would be very useful to have. If you get these slides, you'll see what I have done. I've done another worked example for a separate question, basically, for OCR. So you might find it helpful to go look through that as well. So I very quickly then, for the last 5-10 minutes, just want to talk you through the basics and requirements of OCR for anyone that does do this. Where can I find the slides? This seems to be a common thing. Mr. Siddiqui should have sent you all your parents, access to these slides. I will chase him up about this because this seems like he has not been doing this. I've been uploading them onto the system. She should have access to them. But I will chase him up tomorrow because you all deserve access to these slides. Yeah, it seems like he's not been sending them. I don't know why. You should have access to them. Okay, right. So in terms of OCR then, very similar to Edexcel, similar skills, except this time it's 12 marks. So you'd be looking at 3 Peter paragraphs rather than 4. And you'd be looking at 18 minutes thereabouts. And you'd get something that looks like this. Question 3 is about text 2. So it would always tell you which text to refer to. And it will say, look at the specific lines. Now, make sure, because OCR isn't as nice as Edexcel, Edexcel give you the extract. OCR don't give you the extract, they just expect you to find it in the text. So always double check you're using the right lines because you don't want to be picking quotes from bits that aren't relevant. So please double check that you're using the right lines if you're OCR, because for some reason they're quite mean and don't give you the extract. And it'll say something like explore how. So for this specific question, again, similar to Edexcel, go through and highlight the focus of the question, which in this case is Cooper's feelings at the cliff edge. Support your ideas using relevant subject terminology. And the same advice applies here as did Edexcel. Now, I briefly want to talk you through, again, the mark scheme, because it's very, very similar to Edexcel. It wants, and again, I've only highlighted level 6 because that is where we are aiming for. Don't aim for less. We are going to do AQA, but as I said, it's different to all the other exam boards, so I'm leaving it till next time. Because you don't get an extract question for AQA, it will only be whole text, unlike all the others. So again, a skilled analysis. It wants a deep level of explanation, not just one sentence. It wants a sophisticated appreciation of how the writer has used structure to achieve effects and influence the reader. We should analyze language and structure in a detailed way. So don't just write, the writer has used this technique to entertain. We want a detailed exploration of why the writer has done what they have done. And precisely selected and integrated subject terminology. So, as I said, similar thing. We're aiming for 3 per paragraph of terms. And again, 2 to 4 quotes per paragraph as well. Except this time, 3 per paragraphs. Now, I don't even know if I'm going to risk reading this because on this laptop, it's really blurry. And it's already hard handwriting to read. But this is an example that got almost full marks. So the question is, question 3 is about text 2, Jack Boots Rule the Countryside by Jeremy Clarkson. Look at lines 11 to 22, explore how Clarkson presents his feelings about change in the countryside since his childhood. Support your ideas by referring to the language and structure of the text and using relevant subject terminology. So I might leave this for you to explore yourself. But it's worth looking through this as an example of how to score highly. What I will do, though, is show you the examiner's comments for this answer as proof to you how to score highly in exams. Now, the reason that got 11 out of 12, if you read it, you will see that the candidate writes an effective analysis on the text structure and language. They've used the words effective analysis. In other words, they haven't just used a single sentence, they've explained specifically the intentions of the writer. It's often useful to start with structure, as the candidate does here, then examine the language in more detail. The quotations are relevant and well selected, so they've used a range of quotes that are relevant and directly answer the question, but sometimes imprecise. So, making sure that every time you explain why the writer has done something, always link it directly to the question. Yeah, always link it to the question. Because if you don't get marks. Got to link it to the question. And I would do that by using the words of the question, just so the examiner is clear. It says, although the correct use of subject terminology such as parataxis is impressive, it is not a requirement for the achievement of the top band in this particular task. So they have used correct subject terminology. Maybe sometimes a little too much, but they still have done it. Labeling such features as a springboard for understanding what the writer is trying to achieve. And I've highlighted that bit specifically because, like I said before, we don't just want term labeling, we want explanation. So not just saying the writer has used fragmentation, you need to say the writer has used fragmentation because, or it shows. There needs to be an explanation for you to get the marks for terminology. Even if you go in the exam and start bullet pointing terminology, you won't get any marks. You have to use a terminology and an explanation, if that makes sense. So the entire Peter paragraph structure needs to be there for you to get marks. Okay, right, I will leave. Let's stop early then, because there's no point starting another extract. What we will begin to do next week is go through AQA, and we're going to look at how to target a whole text. Now, there is a second worked example here. It would be a shame because I did work on this, but never mind. But I'm going to leave it in your notes. And if you want to work your way through this yourself for revision, please do. I think it would be helpful. And if anyone, as always, wants to send me anything, here is this week's challenge. If you do want to send me anything, please send it to this email because it goes directly to me. I enjoy reading what you've done. Yeah, I enjoy reading what you've done. So please send something to me if you want to. So I will leave it there for you to take a picture of. Natty says he can't wait for Friday. That's hilarious. I will message Mr. Siddiqui because he clearly has not been sending out the links to the slides. But normally, your parents should have been given a link to all of the English stuff, along in the same place that you will find all of the science notes and maths notes. Should be in the same place as those, if that helps. I still enjoy it. English is way more fun than marking science and maths. Now that I don't particularly enjoy. Now, Natty, let's see what we've got. Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, have a nice week, guys. I'll leave this on. I'll stay around for a couple more minutes in case you want to ask me anything English related. As always, I'm here to help. I did this question 5, paper 1 story, which I've sent to you before. I used for my Year 11 mock. If I send you that, would you be able to check how I could get the other 5 marks? Yeah, I could have a check over that. Yeah, please send it to me. Right, any other questions before I let you all go? Cool. Right, I will see some of you later in the week. Enjoy your weeks, guys.